Namaste. In today's session, I would like to introduce key points of research ethics and plagiarism. We will start the session with the word ethics. The word ethics is derived from the ancient Greek word ethikos. Its meaning was relating to one's character. Ethos, which means character, moral, nature, was the root word for this. This word then transferred into Latin as ethica and then into French as ethique, from which it was transferred into English as ethics. In the field of research, we commonly use the word research ethics. Research ethics is interested in the analysis of ethical issues that arises when people are involved as participants in research. It also ensures the ethical soundness of the research activities, maintenance of confidentiality, and protection of data. It deals with the model principles which researchers should follow irrespective of their fields of research. Research ethics is related to all levels of research activities and its publication. It involves several important factors such as integrity, competence, non-maleficence, beneficence, autonomy, freedom, honesty, responsibility, dignity, respect, rules, regulations, guidelines, moral principles, values, etc. We will see these one by one. Now, I would like to draw your attention towards a great initiation. UGC, in its 543rd meeting held on 9th August 2019, approved a new course for all PhD students. The name of the course is Research and Publication Ethics, in short, RPE. It is compulsory for all PhD scholars for pre-registration coursework. The scope of the course is to create awareness about publication ethics and publication misconducts. It's a 2-credit course of 30 hours. We can observe the structure of the RPE course. It consists of 6 units, of which first 3 is theory part, the next 3 will be practice part. The units are like this: philosophy and ethics, scientific conduct, publication ethics, and then open access publishing, publication misconduct, database, and research matrix. It's an initiation towards creating awareness about research ethics. Now, I would like to just recall all the previous sessions for your benefit. Research is a systematic approach and it's a step towards a new knowledge. Being active researchers, we are all having responsibility. There lies the need for research ethics. Now, we can observe in detail the concepts of research ethics one by one. We can start with competence. Research competence is a quality, or it can be described as having sufficient knowledge, judgment, skill, or strength in the research field. It ensures the effective communication or interaction between researchers and study participants. It leads to adequate analysis and interpretation of the data and towards a good result. It also ensures the appropriate study design and implementation. Ethical competence distinguishes between simply having skills and having a true sense of professionalism. Many researchers speaks about 5 characteristics of competency, that is motives, traits, self-concept, knowledge, and skills. Here, the acquisition of necessary skills and being a researcher to provide independent solution of the problem is very important. Basically, research integrity means conducting research with integrity, which allows others to have trust in the methods used and the findings of the research. Here, the honest and verifiable methods and findings aids to the core essence of research ethics. The basic principles of research integrity includes honesty, fairness, accountability, and responsibility. A researcher must always be open and honest in his research and must be accountable for his work. Also, there must be fairness in any analysis, interpretation, and must be having responsibility in all aspects. There must be transparency and open communication. Research integrity creates trust, and trust is the heart of research process, says a report. Hence, integrity is a commitment to intellectual honesty and personal responsibility in research. One point is here. Researchers must respect that the individuals should make their own informed decisions about whether to participate in research or not. Hence, there comes autonomy. Autonomy is basically a Latin word for self-rule. Researchers must respect the autonomy of other people is the principle here. The ethical principle of autonomy has high value in personal healthcare decision making is also a point to be noted here. Researcher must consider autonomy when it is related to self-determination of people. Autonomy in ethics refers to freedom of individual. It also refers to one's right to make decisions without being coerced. It should also to be noted that the concept of social, political, and ethical morals provide individuals the rational right to make their own informed choices. Here, we can note about the freedom of research. One should not make any confusion in between autonomy and this concept. Both researchers and the research institutions have the responsibility to preserve the freedom and independence of research. Appropriate care must be taken when the research topic is sensitive, strategic, controversial, or having commercial considerations. There should not be any constraints or pressures on researchers in this regard. There should not be any attempts to dictate what results the research should lead to. But it should also to be noted that there should not be any withholding or selective publication of research. It is the obligation and duty of the researchers and the research institutions to maintain transparency in publishing results or findings. This freedom is needed to seek, produce, and disseminate knowledge in the society. Now, we can go for the research responsibility and ethics. One of the important factors. Responsibility of the researcher in this regard is very important. Responsibility of research will be regulated by the scientific, ethical, and legal norms. Social values will also have their own impact. Researchers have a greater responsibility here. There will be research methodology, questionnaires, analytical perspectives, documentation, findings. Everything will be done in a set profile or set pattern. Here, the guidelines of the institution plays a vital role. There lies the role of research supervisor and the institution. Research findings may be utilized for the benefit of mankind. If it is the other way, there will be harms also. Hence, this responsibility is very important. Research, as we all know, is a continuous process. In case of PhD, there will be full-time and part-time researchers. If it is in science, laboratory is a must. As in the case of part-time candidate also, this necessary requirement must be available. The facilities which a full-time researcher gets is to be available for the part-time research candidate also. Of course, there will be guidelines issued and modified time to time by institutions or regulatory authorities such as UGC, CSIR, etc. The universities, institutions, and also the approved research centers must go with high standards of research. Honesty is the basic principle here. Research supervisor must ensure the proper implementation of guidelines. Institutions also have to develop and to maintain good scientific practices. There must be proper training in research ethics to the researchers in the initial stage itself. There should be proper procedures to avoid plagiarism, unethical practices, etc. Committees are also formed in this regard. One thing is to be remembered: to err is human, to forgive is divine. Now we have to look into two major concepts of research ethics. Since the privacy and confidentiality are correlated, we can discuss these two together. While the privacy is a right rooted in common law, the confidentiality is an ethical duty. We can observe the difference between these two. Privacy is a situation where a person is free from public interference. Confidentiality is a situation when information is kept secret from the reach of any person. Privacy talks about a person, but confidentiality is about information. If we have to speak about privacy in particular, we should remember that the need for privacy is a function of generally accepted social norms and individual expectations about what information about oneself should be and should not be known to others. A person in human subject research has a right to privacy while participating in research. Privacy relates to the research participants' direct disclosure to the researcher. Here, proper care must be taken to protect privacy of individual, family, and data related to children. It is ethical duty of the researcher to protect research participants' right to privacy. In turn, it requires respect for their autonomy, their right to self-determination, as well as general welfare. Now, it is the time to look into the concept of confidentiality. Confidentiality relates to the extent to which the researcher protects the participants' private information or data. In fact, confidentiality is the process of protecting an individual's privacy. Researchers must process data acquired about personal matters confidentially. Normally, the personal data must be de-identified during publication of the research material. Here, the anonymity must be maintained. In fact, researchers must promise confidentiality to the participants, which means that the information gathered will not be passed on in ways that can identify individuals. Confidentiality is an obligation to the researcher and right for the participant. Very important point. Confidentiality is an obligation to the researcher and it is the right for the participant. It is related to participants' trust as well as legal aspect that protects personal integrity and privacy. Hence, the limits of pledge of confidentiality must be properly communicated to the participants. Now, we have to understand two more terminologies. That is non-maleficence and beneficence. Non-maleficence is an ethical principle which has meaning not doing harm. This word is derived from Latin maxim non nocere or first do no harm. This term arises primarily in bioethics or healthcare ethics. This principle involves areas of healthcare practices, including treatment procedures and the rights of the patients. It has been upheld in both the ethical and legal practices of healthcare. This principle obligates the professionals as well as researchers to promote well-being of their participants while refraining from causing or exposing them to any kind of harm. It involves ethical and legal duty to avoid harming others, which is applicable to all the areas of research. Together, we can think of the concept of beneficence. Both beneficence and non-maleficence are fundamental ethical principles that guide the clinical practice and the research of mental health professionals. For a long time, these two principles have been used to provide good framework for intervention, informing of actions, policies, and enabled carrying out the research in the area of public health and all other related disciplines. In particular, beneficence is a concept which clearly states that researchers should have the welfare of the research participant as a goal of any clinical trial or any other research study. In fact, the antonym of the term beneficence is maleficence. It describes a practice which opposes the welfare of any research participant. Beneficence is defined as an act of charity, mercy, and kindness, with a strong connotation of doing good to others, including moral obligation. The principle of beneficence in research is a moral obligation to act for the benefit of participants. Beneficence has two important aspects. It is not only providing benefits, but also it is balancing benefits and risks or harms. Another key point is human dignity. Every researcher must remember that the individuals have interests and integrity which cannot be set aside in researches. Series of international laws and human rights conventions repeatedly gave call for respect towards human dignity and personal integrity. Researchers must protect personal integrity, preserve individual freedom and self-determination, respect privacy and family life, and safeguard against harm and unreasonable strain. We have to remember that while research may help to promote human dignity, it can also threaten it. Hence, it is the responsibility of the researcher to show respect for human dignity in their choice of topic, in relation to the research subjects, and in publication of research results. In connection with the previous topic, we have to discuss about the concept of respect. Respect for human beings is an essential component of human research ethics. It was emphasized in the Nuremberg Code and has been continuously recognized in all authoritative national and international guidelines since then. This starts by obtaining informed consent from all individuals who are going to be part of research or to be research subjects. It is to be remembered that in science or clinical trials, also respect for person is a must when the person receiving health intervention is of sound mind, fit to make personal decisions and empowered to choose from various options. It is a must in order to continue to maintain public trust and confidence in human research. Another concept to be noted here is justice. It is one of the core values to be applied in research. Although justice is a multifaceted concept and difficult to be defined, we have to accept that in research ethics, it has a vital role to play. In research, fair selection of research participant is a justice. Justice is the ideal distribution of risks and benefits. Usually, this concept is applied in clinical trials and science researchers where volunteer research participant is involved. This concept gives guidelines on the inclusion of underprivileged communities to be part of research. Justice may mean different things to different people, depending on the context and circumstances, but one cannot deny that it has its own role in research ethics. Social responsibility is a matter of concern in research ethics. In connection with this, we can discuss about moral principles and values. We know that moral principles and values, norms, are the guiding force of culture and society. Many norms of the research promote a variety of moral and social values such as social responsibility, human rights, animal welfare, compliance with the law, safety of public. Ethical lapses in research will significantly harm human and animal subjects participants. Here we have to see the factors of value also. Value is defined as the principle and ideal which influence the society. Ethics is a system of moral principles. Value is the stimuli of our thinking. It strongly influences the emotional state of mind and acts as a motivator. Ethical decision making in research focuses on providing maximum benefits to the participants. Following the ethical principle is crucial for maintaining research integrity. There should not be any scope for research misconduct. Hence, we have to understand another important concept here, that is plagiarism. Some interesting facts are here. Originally, this plagiarism word comes from the Latin word plagiarius. Its literal meaning is kidnapper. Roman poet Martial of 1st century has complained that another poet had kidnapped his verses. There, Martial uses the word plagiarius. In the Jacobean era of English literature, around the year 1601, a dramatist by name Ben Jonson introduced a word, plagiary, to denote someone guilty of literary theft. plagiarism in research has been viewed seriously. It is presenting work or ideas of someone else as one's own, with or without their consent, by incorporating it into one's work without full acknowledgement. Now we can look into different types of plagiarism. Basically, we say direct plagiarism, self-plagiarism, mosaic plagiarism, or patchwork plagiarism, or incremental plagiarism. Fourth one, accidental plagiarism or unintentional plagiarism. Before going into detail of all these four types, I would like to draw your attention towards some more types of plagiarism indicated by several scholars. First one, cloning plagiarism, or it is also known as identical copying. Cloning plagiarism is copying another person's work word for word without any change and claiming as one's own. There is another kind of plagiarism, that is remix plagiarism. Remix type of plagiarism is collecting information from various sources and mixing all together as a single work without citation and claiming as one's own work. There won't be any citation, mixed up data will be there, and one will claim it as his own work. That is called as remix type. There is one more type that is called Control-C plagiarism or copy-paste plagiarism. It is copying from a single source without any alteration. Another type is hybrid type of plagiarism. It is this hybrid type of plagiarism where the cited source works are copied and arranged as a new work without citation. There won't be any citation, but every work will be copied and it will be projected as a new work. Another type is find and replace. Find and replace, where the work is copied and most common phrases and keywords will be replaced with some other words or some other phrases. It is called as find and replace plagiarism. There is one more kind of plagiarism, that is recycling or recycle or self-plagiarism. We are going to look into that one in detail. It is borrowing from one's own earlier works without proper citation. There is one more kind. It is mashup plagiarism. Mashup type of plagiarism where the contents will be copied from several sources and everything is mixed up. It will become a work without any proper citation. It is called as mashup type of plagiarism. Someone refers to another type of plagiarism as 404 error. It's a technical term actually. Here, from several sources, various things will be copied and it will be prepared as a single work or document with the citation. The citation will be there, but the pathetic condition is that the citation will be inaccurate and it will lead to non-existing sources, which is indicated as 404 error. It's a curious thing of plagiarism actually. Another type is aggregator plagiarism. Aggregator plagiarism. Here, the report will be containing all the citations in a proper manner, but there won't be any original work. In a structure, it will be a original work, but there won't be any original thing. Last one is retweet plagiarism, a new term actually. It is in which the work seems to be perfect with proper citation, but there will be resemblance with the original work, the wordings and the structure. That's why it is called as retweet plagiarism. So in plagiarism also there are different ways where some passages may be taken from multiple sources and then woven into single work as one's own. Also, there will be attempts to hide the copying in the forms of changing words, sentences, and phrases. Moreover, paraphrasing from several sources without citation will be there. It is the most common type. When we were speaking about direct plagiarism, a kind of plagiarism, most commonly used term it is, we have to think about this paraphrasing without citation. We have to remember paraphrasing itself is not a plagiarism. If all the sources were properly cited, paraphrasing is not a plagiarism. So, now we can come for the definition of direct plagiarism. Direct plagiarism is the word for word transcription of some work without any proper citation, quotation or attribution. It is direct plagiarism. Another important part is self-plagiarism. Nowadays, discussion is going on regarding the self-plagiarism. Self-plagiarism means reusing one's own work that one has already published. It involves resubmitting an entire paper, copying or paraphrasing passages from one's own previous work or recycling the old data. This self-plagiarism misleads readers by presenting old work as completely new or original. It will have major legal implications also, where the copyright issue of original author may rise. If one author takes text or figures directly from one work and include in another scientific work without citing the original publication, even though it is of his own or her own work, it will lead to plagiarism. We have to remember this point very clearly. Self-plagiarism is considered as unethical and questionable research practice. Hence, UGC has recently issued a public notice regarding self-plagiarism, that is on April 20th, 2020. See, you can observe the public notice here. This notice clearly mentions about all these aspects of self-plagiarism. You can just observe the notice and the key points here. Just go through the points here. Some points to be noted. Being researchers, we have to be aware of such facts. Reproduction in part or whole of one's own previously published work without adequate citation and proper acknowledgement, and claiming the most recent work as new and original for any academic advantage amounts to text recycling. So, what are the points to be remembered regarding text recycling? Republishing the same paper already published elsewhere without due and full citation. Publishing smaller or accepted work from a longer and previous work without due and full citation in order to show a large number of publications. Reusing data already used in a published work or communicated for publication in another work without due and full citation. Breaking up a longer or larger study into smaller sections and publishing them as altogether new work without due and full citation. Paraphrasing one's own previously published work without due and full citation of the original. All these things will come under self-plagiarism. Self-citations do not add any numbers to the individual citation index. This point must be kept in mind regarding H index in the global academia. So, one thing we can note down here, it is regarding the difference between plagiarism and self-plagiarism. The American Psychological Association, APA, differentiates plagiarism from self-plagiarism. The quote is like this: whereas plagiarism refers to the practice of claiming credit for the words, ideas, and concepts of others, self-plagiarism refers to the practice of presenting one's own previously published work as though it were new. Now we can see about patchwork plagiarism. A curious thing to note. It is also known as incremental plagiarism or mosaic plagiarism. Here, one borrows phrases, passages, ideas from a source without using quotation marks or replacing with synonyms for the author's language, while keeping the same general structure and meaning of the original. It's a kind of patchwork. Here, author never indicates which words and which ideas have been borrowed. So, be careful while observing or citing some works. Finally, we can see about accidental plagiarism or unintentional plagiarism. This thing also happens. It occurs when a person neglects to cite his or her sources or misquotes the sources or unintentionally paraphrases a source. Unintentionally paraphrasing a source. It may occur when author do not really understand how to properly paraphrase or quote or cite his research. That's why research competency comes. The earlier session, earlier part of the session, we have seen that how a researcher should be and what are his qualifications and what are the ethical principles he have to follow. Just recall those points now. It is important for this accidental plagiarism. Unintentional plagiarism or accidental plagiarism does not provide proper credit for ideas, research of someone else, even though it was not intentional or to present the work as one's own. This happens. Why? Because accidental plagiarism is usually the result of being rushed or unorganized or uninformed about citation and research process. So here we have to see some important aspects about citation. It's a key point regarding to plagiarism, citation. A citation is a reference to the source of information used in the research. A citation is a reference to the source of information used in the research. It is a reference to a published or unpublished source that a researcher has consulted and obtained information from while doing his or her research. That is the point to be remembered. Then we have to go for the major citation styles used in academic writing. One is APA, another is MLA, another is Chicago style. APA, American Psychological Association style. MLA, Modern Language Association style. And the third one is Chicago style. I hope that you are all aware of these styles. During the earlier sessions, we may have discussed this one. So, the way in which one document the source depends on the writing style manual. So, to avoid plagiarism, one must have to provide proper citation. Hence, a researcher must adhere to guidelines of the citation style. That is very much important. There may be an in-text citation or end of paper citation. Related to a research paper, the citation will be like this. Along with citation, one must be aware of the permission and the authorship. Permission and the authorship. Obtaining permission is a must in research. Without original author's permission, reproducing the work or part of the work will be cited as plagiarism. Also, there should be credit to author, because we all know that plagiarism is presenting of the work of someone else as one's own. So, another point here is about authorship. Authorship provides recognition. It establishes the intellectual and professional credibility, and also it may contribute to career progression of the author. Authorship provides credit for an individual's contribution to research, and it carries accountability. We have to remember all these points when we are giving the authorship or the citations. That is a crucial point related to research ethics as well as plagiarism. An important aspect of plagiarism is online tools or the softwares related to plagiarism. Now we can check in detail related to this one, the plagiarism tools. Plagiarism checker software can be used to check one's text for plagiarism. Nowadays, all the higher education institutions uses these plagiarism checking softwares. Especially the research works and research papers will have to be get through these software tools. It's mandatory now, and it's mandatory to curb the menace of plagiarism or the duplication. Usually, plagiarism detection software works to identify the content similarity matches. Once the research work is either uploaded or copy-pasted in the online plagiarism tool, they check the content with other various texts available online in order to detect plagiarism. Being researchers, we all know how the process will take, how this process is going on, and what are the softwares we are using for that one. We are just refresh our memory now. But there may be some miscreants who wants to fool the softwares as well as the machines. Being in research and development cell, I have been observing some such attempts also. There lies the responsibility of the concerned official who is in charge of plagiarism checking. Sometimes with the modified intention to get through the plagiarism check, some unnecessary characters or words may be inserted in between texts, and they will be colored with white font color. I have personally come across such works. It is a challenge to the person who is in charge of the plagiarism checking. Manually, we have to go through such works. Or there may be some words as bibliography, reference, etc. in between the text. Why these words have been added or included in between the research work? So as to escape through the command of the machine. We have given some commands to the machine, that is exclude bibliography or reference. So these are some of the attempts made by some miscreants. Some they want to fool the machine also. Or sometimes some texts may be converted into images, because images won't be recognized by some of the software checking tools. So we want to escape from the software levels of the plagiarism. So number of such bad practices prevails among some people. We can observe such people there. Although it is ethical responsibility, there must be institutional mechanism to avoid such practices. That's why the responsibility of the concerned official is more in this regard. So we can think of two important softwares here. That is, one is Turnitin. It is originality checking and plagiarism prevention service that checks one's writing for citation mistakes or inappropriate copying. Then there is Urkund. Urkund is a fully automatic machine learning text recognition system made for detecting, preventing, and handling plagiarism. Nowadays, this Turnitin and Urkund are used in checking of plagiarism in higher education institutions. There are several other tools also available online. Free tools are also available. To name some, Plagiarisma, PlagScan, CopyLeaks, Viper, QText, EduBirdie, Papperator, Grammarly, and Search Engine Report Plagiarism Checker. We can check our works through these online software tools. But we should be aware of some technical aspects in this regard. And while you are checking your original work, it should not be deposited anywhere. Or even if it is deposited, you should know where it is checked and where it is deposited, so that when you are submitting your final report, you may have to indicate so and so work has been uploaded through so and so software. So it can be excluded while counting your plagiarism percentage. Otherwise, your work will be shown, even though it is your original work, it will be shown as 100% plagiarism. Once if it is deposited in the depository, it will be shown as a plagiarized work, because the instructions given to the machines or the tools will be in such a way. Then we have to manually go for the correction of this error. Now, one more important aspect we have to think, that is UGC in the year 2018 had introduced promotion of academic integrity and prevention of plagiarism in higher education institution regulation. It has provided 8 major guidelines to curb the plagiarism. And it has provided guidelines for the similarity checks also. It clearly states about the levels of plagiarism from 1 to 4, ranging from 10% to 100%. It shows that how serious is the issue of plagiarism is, and every researcher must take care of original research work. Now, finally, I would like to give you some tips to avoid plagiarism. Always maintain a clean record of the sources that you consult during your research. Never go for any kind of copy-paste. Write with your own ideas and quote the sources in appropriate manner. Always give full credit to the original author. Follow the correct citation method and provide complete reference list. Use a plagiarism checker. Follow all the ethical principles and be honest in your research. Thank you. My best wishes to all the participants here, and thanks to the organizers, that is Government First Grade College, Chennaraipatna, the principal, IQAC coordinator, other faculty members, and organizing secretary, Dr. Ajay Kumar. Thank you.